Welcome and welcome back. My name is Tony, and this is Reading the Bible in a Year. Today is day 36, and we're going to cover Exodus 19 through 21. First off, I want to start the day just telling you guys thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your thumbs up likes. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for subscribing. And thank you for sharing. By doing all these things, you're doing your part. You're taking action. You're not just listening and taking in. You're taking action, and that's what God needs in our life. It's what He needs us all to do is not just listen and speak, but to take action. And you've done that, and thank you so much for that. I hope it's as much a blessing to you as the word has been to me. I learn so much every day from reading this Bible. It's just amazing how much there is for me to still learn. I definitely don't know it all, but I get touched and blessed every day from it, and I hope it touches and blesses you as well. On those notes, so we hit 150 subscribers last week, which is amazing, and we got Rick's testimony. If you haven't seen that, go out and watch that if you want. It's great. It's inspiring. And I've got a big weight off my shoulder because I got the 200 subscriber testimony lined up. So it's ready. It's going to be a female. Her name is Lana. I called her and talked to her this morning. And just amazing thing is, she tells me, we're just talking. She just tells me the words I needed to hear. So I even wrote it down. Comes from Psalms 46:10. Be still and know I am God. I didn't ask her for that today. She just shared that with me. And I think those are really wise words. They relate back to the message that we've been seeing. The Israelites still doubt God. Through all these miracles, through all this stuff, they still doubt Him. Right? Are we like that? God's trying to love us and trying to help us, and we still doubt His way because maybe it's not in the time frame that we want or in the way that we wanted it to be. And so, anyway, I just find that very amazing. So, be still and know that I am God. Psalms 46:10. I think that it just says God's in control in all circumstances. And might be hard for you. It is extremely hard for me to submit to God's will. I know, it shouldn't be, and I hate to admit it, but it is. I don't like to submit to nobody. I kind of have a little problem with authority, maybe a little. I just don't like it. I don't like to ask for help. I want to do it on my own, but I can't do it on my own. So thank you for your help. You support me, you inspire me, and you help me. And so we're going to keep on reading the Bible, and hopefully we'll keep getting blessed from that. Something I'm, always going to give out little challenges throughout the way. That's how we grow as well, is just lift that little more weight, add a little bit more, do a little more. Not more than you can handle, but just a little bit more. And so I've been praying a lot lately. And I'm not bragging, I'm just saying I've been praying a lot lately. And when I pray, I mostly talk. You're surprised, right? I just talk to God all the time. I need to listen. Jim Hamby from my men's group. I think men's groups and women's groups and church Bible studies are also very impactful, and I think they'll help you a lot. They've helped me a lot. But he told me something 2 weeks ago, but it stuck with me, is that he listens to God when he's in his truck driving around. He doesn't turn on the radio, doesn't sit there talking to God all day long. He's out working and doing his things that he has to do, but he listens. He tries to listen to God. He's still and listening to God. So I'm going to take that challenge. I'm still, unfortunately, to make a living, I'm supplementing my income by delivering pizzas at night, so which I haven't had a real home inspection in a couple of weeks, so it's been the only thing providing for me, and I'm grateful and thankful for it. Plus, it's an easy job, and I have tons of time, and I've been filling up that time listening to Christian music and Christian podcasts, and tonight I'm not going to turn on anything. I'm going to leave the car quiet. No radio. I'm just going to try to listen to God tonight for a few hours. It'll be the longest I've probably ever tried to listen to God. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, without any further ado, sorry to give you so much. You know what to do if Tony's blabbering too much. Is just when I throw the glasses on, it's go time. So without any further ado, let's say a quick prayer and we'll get into it. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for teaching us so much, or teaching me at least so much through the lessons of the Word. Thank you for giving me the strength and the willpower to continue to come and do this every day, Lord. It is blessing me tremendously. Lord, I'm going to need your help. I don't like to sit still. I don't like not to talk. I don't like to submit. And I know I need to. So, Lord, help me do that. Help me accomplish my challenge for myself tonight of being quiet and trying to listen to you, Lord. Lord, please open our ears to hear this message today, open our eyes to see it, and our hearts to receive it. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So this is Exodus 19. Mount Sinai. 3 months after leaving Egypt, the Israelites entered the wilderness of Sinai. They followed the route from Rephidim, arrived at the wilderness of Sinai, and set up camp. Israel camped there facing the mountain. As Moses went up to meet God, God called down to him from the mountain, "Speak to the house of Jacob. Tell the people of Israel, you have seen what I did to Egypt and how I carried you on eagle's wing and brought you to me. If you will listen obediently to what I say and keep my covenant, out of all peoples you'll be my special treasure. The whole earth is mine to choose from, but you're special, a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. This is what I want you to tell the people of Israel." Moses came back and called the elders of Israel together and set before them all these words which God had commanded him. The people were unanimous in their response. Everything God says, we will do. Moses took the people's answer back to God. God said to Moses, "Get ready. I'm about to come to you in a thick cloud so that the people can listen in and trust you completely when I speak with you." Again, Moses reported the people's answer to God. God said to Moses, "Go to the people. For the next 2 days, get these people ready to meet the holy God. Have them scrub their clothes so that on the 3rd day they'll be fully prepared. Because on the 3rd day, God will come down on Mount Sinai and make his presence known to all the people. Post boundaries for the people all around, telling them, 'Warning, don't climb the mountain. Don't even touch its edge. Whoever touches the mountain dies a certain death, and no one is to touch that person. He's to be stoned.' That's right, stoned, or shot with arrows, shot to death. Animal or man, whichever, put to death. A long blast from the horn will signal that it's safe to climb the mountain." Moses went down the mountain to the people and prepared them for the holy meeting. They gave their clothes a good scrubbing. Then he addressed the people. "Be ready in 3 days. Don't sleep with a woman. On the 3rd day at daybreak, there will be loud claps of thunder, flashes of lightning, a thick cloud covering the mountain, and an ear-piercing trumpet blast." Everyone in the camp shuddered in fear. Moses led the people out of the camp to meet God. They stood at attention at the base of the mountain. Mount Sinai was all smoke because God had come down on it as fire. Smoke poured from it like smoke from a furnace. The whole mountain shuddered and heaved. The trumpet's blast grew louder and louder. Moses spoke and God answered in thunder. God ascended to the peak of Mount Sinai. God called Moses up to the peak and Moses climbed up. God said to Moses, "Go down. Warn the people not to break through the barricades to get a look at God, lest many of them die. And the priests also. Warn them to prepare themselves for the holy meeting, lest God break out against them." Moses said to God, "But the people can't climb Mount Sinai. You've already warned us well, telling us post boundaries around the mountain, respect the holy mountain." God told him, "Go down and then bring Aaron back up with you. But make sure that the priests and the people don't break through and come up to God, lest he break out against them." So Moses went down to the people. He said to them, verse 20, God spoke all these words. I am God, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of slavery. No other gods, only me. No carved gods of any size, shape, or form of anything whatever, whether of things that fly, or walk, or swim. Don't bow down to them. I don't serve them because I am God, your God. I'm a most jealous God, punishing the children for any sins their parents pass on to them to the third, and yes, even to the fourth generations of those who hate me. But I'm unswervingly loyal to the thousands who love me and keep my commandments. No using the name of God, your God, in curses or silly banter. God won't put up with the irreverent use of his name. Observe the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Work 6 days and do everything you need to do. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to God, your God. Don't do any work, not you, not your son, nor your daughter, nor your servant, nor your maid, nor your animals, not even the foreign guests visiting in your town. For in 6 days God made heaven, earth, and sea, and everything in them. He rested on the seventh day. Therefore God blessed the Sabbath day. He set it apart as a holy day. Honor your father and mother so that you'll live a long time in the land that God, your God, is giving you. No murder, no adultery, no stealing, no lies about your neighbor, no lusting after your neighbor's house, or wife, or servant, or maid, or ox, or donkey. Don't set your heart on anything that is your neighbor's. All the people experienced the thunder and lightning, the trumpet blast, and the smoking mountains were afraid. They pulled back and stood at a distance. They said to Moses, "You speak to us and we'll listen, but we don't have God speak to us or we'll die." Moses spoke to the people, "Don't be afraid. God has come to test you and instill a deep and reverent awe within you so that you won't sin." The people kept their distance while Moses approached the thick cloud where God was. God said to Moses, "Give this message to the people of Israel. You've experienced firsthand how I spoke with you from heaven. Don't make gods of silver and gods of gold and then set them alongside me. Make me an earthen altar. Sacrifice your whole burnt offerings, your peace offerings, your sheep and your cattle on it. Every place where I cause my name to be honored in your worship, I'll be there myself and bless you. If you use stones to make an altar, don't use dressed stones. If you use a chisel on the stones, you'll profane the altar. Don't use steps to climb to my altar, because that will expose your nakedness." 21. These are the laws that you are to place before them. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he will serve 6 years. The 7th year he goes free, for nothing. If he came in single, he leaves single. If he came in married, he leaves with his wife. If the master gives him a wife, and she gave him sons and daughters, the wife and children stay with the master, and he leaves by himself. But suppose the slave should say, "I love my master and my wife and children. I don't want my freedom." Then his master is to bring him before God and to a door or doorpost and pierce his ear with an awl, a sign that he is a slave for life. When a man sells his daughter to be a handmaid, she doesn't go free after 6 years like the men. If she does please her master, her family must buy her back. Her master doesn't have the right to sell her to foreigners since he broke his word to her. If he turns her over to his son, he has to treat her like a daughter. If he marries another woman, she retains all her full rights to meals, clothing, and marital relations. If he won't do any of these 3 things for her, she goes free, for nothing. If someone hits another and death results, the penalty is death. But if there was no intent to kill, if it was an accident, an act of God, I'll set aside a place to which the killer can flee for refuge. But if the murder was premeditated, cunningly plotted, then drag the killer away, even if it's from my altar, to be put to death. If someone hits father or mother, the penalty is death. If someone kidnaps a person, the penalty is death, regardless whether the person has been sold or is still held in possession. If someone curses father or mother, the penalty is death. If a quarrel breaks out and one hits the other with a rock or a fist, and the injured one doesn't die but is confined to bed and then later gets better and can get around on a crutch, the one who hit him is in clear except to pay for the loss of time and make sure of complete recovery. If a slave owner hits a slave, male or female, with a stick and the slave dies on the spot, the slave must be avenged. But if the slave survives a day or two, he's not to be avenged. The slave is the owner's property. When there's a fight, and in the fight a pregnant woman is hit so that she miscarries but is not otherwise hurt, the one responsible has to pay whatever the husband demands in compensation. But if there is further damage, then you must give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. If a slave owner hits the eye of a slave or handmaid and ruins it, the owner must let the slave go free because of the eye. If the owner knocks out the tooth of the male or female slave, the slave must be released and go free because of the tooth. If an ox gores a man or a woman to death, the ox must be stoned. The meat cannot be eaten, but the owner of the ox is in the clear. But if the ox has a history of goring, and the owner knew it and did nothing to guard against it, then if the ox kills a man or a woman, the ox is to be stoned and the owner given the death penalty. If a ransom is agreed upon instead of death, he must pay it in full as redemption for his life. If a son or daughter is gored, the same judgment holds. If it is a slave or handmaid, the ox gores, 30 shekels of silver is to be paid to the owner and the ox stoned. If someone uncovers a cistern or digs a pit and leaves it open and an ox or donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit must pay whatever the animal is worth to its owner, but can keep the dead animal. If someone's ox injures a neighbor's ox and the ox dies, they must sell the live ox and split the price. They must also split the dead animal. But if the ox had a history of goring and the owner knew it and did nothing to guard against it, the owner must pay an ox for an ox, but can keep the dead animal. Recap Day 36, Exodus 19 through 21. 7 weeks after leaving Egypt, the Israelites go to Mount Sinai, also called the Mountain of God. God says he wants to meet with them, so they need to consecrate themselves. This is what he told them to do for the firstborns, to set them apart and prepare them to encounter God. Consecration usually involves a bath and clean clothes. Moses says to abstain from sex too, not because women are evil, but because seminal fluids and bloods are symbols of life and death. To be depleted of either of those things points to the depletion of life, which isn't fitting for the presence of the giver of life. Also, they can't get close to the mountain or they'll die. If someone does die, no one's allowed to touch that person because it'll transfer both their death sentence and the power of God. Bottom line, God's power isn't hypothetical. A storm and a trumpet blast signal God's arrival. He descends as fire, covering Sinai in smoke. Then there's an earthquake. In the midst of the storm, fire, smoke, earthquake, and ever-increasing trumpet sound, God tells Moses to come closer, to climb the mountain no one's allowed to touch, because God has a few things to tell him, namely the 10 Commandments. God is talking to Moses, but the people overhear. God uses his personal name with them and points to his love for them. I am Yahweh, your God, or YHWH, your God. I brought you out of slavery. He enters with relationship before telling them his laws. Then he gives the 10 words. That's what they're called in Hebrew. The first 5 words are vertical, how to honor God. The last 5 words are horizontal, how to honor others. Here are some things worth noting. The second word about idols and graven images reveals our natural inclination to worship things. Everyone worships something. Mostly we worship what we see regularly. The challenge for our idolatrous hearts is that Yahweh has no physical form. In order to worship him, we have to move beyond our human nature, which means setting aside the created things we can see with our eyes. Even though God does appropriate a physical form from time to time, like in theophanies, he's not attached to or confined to that form. And when God says he's jealous, it's not like our jealousy and envy. The word here is used only in reference to God. Its meaning is more like protective or zealous. He's protective of and zealous for his relationship with us. It's an act of love. In the third word, we see how seriously God takes his name. There are lots of layers here, but let's focus on 3. Number 1, as people who have taken his name, we're called to live in ways that show we belong to him. 2, this prohibits any kind of insincere or frivolous use of his name because it suggests we're not taking it seriously. And 3, God takes personal offense to anything that diminishes his personhood or character. His name represents his character and his actions. Taking God's name in vain could also correspond to doubting that he is who he says he is. Chapter 21 gives us a general outline for how to live in civil society and treat others well. It reveals God's desire to protect and respect life, including life in the womb, because all life points to its giver. Today's God shot. When the people see God's power and are afraid, Moses says something that seems contradictory at first. Do not fear, for God has come to test you, that the fear of him may not be before you, that you may not sin. So should we be afraid or not? That's a crucial distinction to make between the 2 uses of the word fear. The fear in do not fear carries the idea of dread. This kind of fear drives us away from God. It's sin adjacent. But Moses uses a different word when he's referring to fearing God. It carries the idea of reverence and awe. It's joy adjacent, and it has the effect of drawing us to God. The fear of God is composed primarily of delight and awe, moving us toward God. It's like what we feel at the Grand Canyon. We take long trips to go stand on the edge with our eyes and mouths open, wide, overwhelmed with beauty, yet knowing it could kill us. Moses says that's the kind of fear that keeps us from sinning against God. I like the kind of fear that draws me closer to God, because he's where the joy is. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back reading the Word again tomorrow.